coming. Make sure you grab yourself a drink if you'd like one. This is going to be pretty informal, so if you have a question while I'm talking, go ahead, stop me and ask your question. I think most of you know me. I'm related to probably half of you in this room. But if you don't, my name's Mary Michel. There's my parents there, some of my family in the front row here. But since I graduated high school from Concordia in 2008, I've been living in Manhattan, Kansas, going to Kansas State University to major in architecture. This is my final year. I should be graduating in May with my master's degree. And so I'm here today to tell you about my final project I'm doing in architecture. For the beginning of this year, from about January to August, I was actually in Colorado for an internship with the architecture firm in Telluride. And if you've never heard of Telluride, it's kind of an exclusive ski resort town. There's about 2,300 people, but it doesn't feel like a small town in Kansas does because of the ski resort. There's tourism abound. People are always coming in. Even in the summer, they have music festivals, art festivals, all sorts of things. And I was doing mostly residential work there. So in architecture school, every semester we take what's called architectural design studio. And what that is our professor gives us a project, whether it's a house or a school, any sort of building you can think of, and they say, okay, here's where the project is, here's what kind of rooms you need, gives us some parameters, and they say, okay, go design this. And we usually get to preference what teachers we want. So teacher will say, okay, you're going to be doing an art museum, and then we can choose which teacher we want. And this year it was pretty easy for me to choose. I chose Professor Todd Gabbard and the Small Town Studio.
Nice.
And basically the project is whatever we want to do as long as it's in a small town in Kansas. So it was easy for me to choose because of my background growing up here. And also something that I realized when I was working in Telluride, our clients were really wealthy people, and we were designing vacation homes for them, multi-million-dollar homes. It was really a great experience to design a lot of cool stuff, but felt like there was sort of a disconnect between who the clients were and what I had grown up seeing. And we've talked about this in my studio class. In September, we went to a conference in Kansas City called SEED, and that stands for Social, Economic, Environmental Design. And something we learned there is that about 20% of the population is like those clients I was working for. They have enough money to pay an architect for design services, while the rest of the population doesn't get that chance. For example, raise your hand if you've worked with an architect for a project that was for you. See? We can see the problem right here. So the idea behind SEED is that architects should be more involved in public interest design, which is serving people who don't have access to these design services. So architecture should be for everyone, not just those people who can shell out millions of dollars for it. We should figure out ways that, everyone can experience the design process. So in our studio class, this first semester, we've been working, doing projects in Eureka, Kansas, which is about probably 3.5 hours from here, south and east of here. So it's a town of about 2,500 people, so smaller than Concordia, but a lot bigger than Jamestown. And we, as a class, have done similar things to what I'm doing now. We went and presented some of our ideas to the community and got their feedback. And the project I'm doing there is called the Main Street Green Loop. And what it is, it's a walking trail in the heart of downtown. So it's a loop that's about 2 miles. It looks at incorporating sidewalks on blocks that don't have sidewalks yet, putting art along the trail, new vegetation, trees, flowers, bushes, and it connects green spaces within the town. So it connects to City Park, a Eureka Springs Park, which is where they founded the town. It was their source of water. The story is when they found the spring, they came up on it and said, Eureka! That's how the town started. So it connects to that park, which is currently being developed by some students in the class last year who actually moved down there to continue their projects. And it's also connecting to a park in front of the courthouse, which is part of my design project. So my goal for that project by the end of this semester is to complete those designs, and then as a class we'll be going down and presenting those designs. And that may have some connections to what I'm going to do here. It may not, but it's just kind of a first round of looking at design in small towns. So I'll move on to the project I want to do here. I've chosen to call it Jump Up. And if you recall in 2000 when we had the fire that burned some buildings downtown, as an effort to rebuild in the town, the community effort was called JUMP, which is Jamestown Unites Many Projects. So I wanted to build on that effort and that spirit of the community coming together to revitalize the town, but I didn't want to sort of take it over and say, oh, I'm in charge, it's going this way, It's building on that, but it's also a new thing. So I added UP, which stands for urban planning. And before you're like, whoa, wait, urban, that's not what I think about when I think about Jamestown. Within the field of architecture, urban planning means regional and community planning. It's kind of a blanket term that means any sort of comprehensive plan you have for growth in any size city. So that can include, new and improved infrastructure, your roads, your sidewalks, planting new vegetation, incorporating parks, or even what new buildings you want to go there. And then after we sort of look at an urban planning stage for Jamestown, I want to focus the design into the human scale. So actually looking at the specific design for these elements. What would a new building you guys want look like? Where would these trees go? What kind of trees are they? Are they in a planter? What exactly does that look like? And if you want to know what these efforts might look like as far as the drawing goes, on this board over here is one of the projects from the students last year, and he did the same thing in Eureka, Kansas. So he came up with a diagrammatic map of the town and actually placed where things were going to go. And he came up with a design for some new apartments, a walking trail, a new plaza, kind of a town square sort of thing, a city pavilion, and a beer garden. Yeah. Thought you guys would like that. So that's sort of what I want to do here. And that leads me into one of the most important things about this project. While it's for my master's thesis and I'm sort of getting the ball rolling on it, it's not about me. It's about you guys. So what I'm here to do today is get some feedback from you guys. I want to hear what you think about the ideas of, adding new things to the town and improving it. I've brought some surveys that you can fill out. And of course, all of this stuff is optional. You can be involved as much as you want to. If you take a survey and there's a question on there you don't want to answer, you don't have to. And also I've brought some display boards. The first one explains the project in writing, and then has an example of that project from last year. And there's also a booklet that explains the project in full. I think it's about 7 pages, but you can see his design for the beer garden and for the pavilion, and he's also designed some benches. I've also brought my portfolio if you want to see some of the work I've done. There's 4 projects in there. And some business cards if you want to get a hold of me about specific ideas you have for the project. The next one is a map of town. And I brought some stickers, and what you should do is put a sticker on the place in town that you want something to happen. And then in this white space here, I brought some markers, and you can write what you think should go there and, where should it be. So if you think you want a beer garden, you can write beer garden downtown or wherever else you would want it to be. And then this last board has about 20 images. It's got images of different amenities. For example, there's a walking trail, there's a cafe. Different architectural styles, do you like traditional stuff, modern stuff, landscaping styles, and building materials. So you can also put a sticker on the images you like, and then under each image there's some white space to write what you like about it, or maybe you really don't like an image, you can write, we want to avoid this kind of thing here. And like I said, it's all optional. The amount you participate is up to you, but the more you guys do participate, the better it's going to go, the more direction I'm going to have, and what I should be designing. So, since I'm looking for feedback from you, I'm going to shut up and see if you have any questions or need me to explain anything.
Did Cuba implement any of the stuff that the kid you guys drew out?
Good question. He explains it on the last page. They didn't actually build anything. He focused mostly on design. I think he did set them up for fundraising. So we could go the same route, or depending on how much support and excitement there is, we could get to a fundraising stage, and we could even get to a building stage. Whether that's by May when I graduate, whether it happens in the summer, or maybe even next fall, that's up to all of you.
So you help with the fundraising if there's that, donations and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, and I've taken a grant writing course. Well, it was a one-day training course. So if we get some funds, I can look at some grants we can write. We can get the funds matched, and then get even more money to do even more stuff. Any other questions? Dan?
I was curious about you was talking about architects and their services for people who are less fortunate. Is that similar to a lawyer that does pro bono? So you don't actually make money doing it, you're just doing it to help the community, to basically get your name out there?
That's part of it. What we learned at the SEED conference is that this is a growing sort of interest within the field of architecture. So mostly right now it's people doing pro bono work and volunteer work. They'll have their 9-to-5 job, and this is what they do on nights and weekends. We listened to presentations from people who helped people in big cities in neighborhoods that are kind of run down. There was a lady who talked about a project she did in Sudan, building schools for kids there. And so our class is focusing on that in the rural context. So yeah, since I'm in school, free.
Now, has anybody in your class been able to reach those stages and implement any of their ideas and designs to any of these small rural towns?
Last year in Eureka, there were 8 kids working in Eureka. There's the one guy working in Cuba and one guy working in Colby. And I think in Colby, he designed an amphitheater, which they asked him specifically, like, we want an amphitheater, design it for us. And so they are actually in the stages of getting that built. In Eureka, one of the things they did, they built sort of a trellis, which is kind of like a shelter without an actual roof. They built it over an existing park they had there, but they only kept it up for a few days, so they took that back down. One thing that did happen there in Eureka was that 3 of the students, after they graduated, moved down there and started their own architecture firm. So they've been taking some of the projects in Eureka from last year and starting to implement them. And one of those is the Eureka Springs Park that my Main Street Green Loop is looking to connect to. So they've had several cleanup days there. They're looking at implementing the actual design that the student came up with. So they've already got funding for it. They are just, in the planning stages of when's it actually going to get built, who's going to build it. And they've also got money for a bike lane there in town. So those are some actual things that are going on there. Oh, one thing we have done in my studio this year is a bench project. We came up with a few bench designs within the studio. We voted on the best one, kind of talked about how to make it better. And they're made from plywood, so we figured out a really easy way to cut them out and get them built. So we are taking orders from people in Eureka who want to buy a bench. And they're really light benches, easy to move around, so people can decide where they want benches in town. It's sort of an experimental aspect to the project. And then maybe if, they stay in one place, they'll get pulled down, or maybe they'll be able to be moved for later.
Well, being, like we are a pretty small town, and we live kind of a bedroom community, Concordia, and do they have any, you have access to any way of them knowing, what we could offer as a bedroom community, or do you guys look into that stuff, or?
Yeah, we have talked about that, and we've actually read a book. It's called, I think, The Survival of Rural America, and it talks about things that towns generally need to survive, and it's possible for bedroom communities to do that, but to be autonomous, you need certain things like, restaurants, a grocery store, usually a school, but since we're so close to Concordia, that's not a big deal. It's not, 30, 40-minute commute. But I would say the biggest thing is having stuff to get people to come here. So kind of tourist attractions, you don't need to get like Telluride where I was working. But, if people come here every once in a while, just things to get people from outside the community to come and spend some money. And so you guys get money coming in. That's what's really going to make you grow. Anything else?
Out of all the projects and stuff that a guy could think of, how many should a town tackle
I would say
to be successful?
yeah, as many as you want, but kind of taking it one at a time would be the easiest. You could be in the building stage of one project, and then I think it would be safe to go ahead and start planning another project. But you always got to make sure that you have the funds and the resources for the next project to actually get done. You don't want to plan all this great stuff and then you can't get it done. And generally, for grants, if you already have a design in place, whoever's doing the grant, giving you money, will see, oh, they're really serious. Like, they already have a plan to put this in motion. You know, this is halfway done, so we're gonna give you the money because all you need to do now is build it.
Yeah, because the city's we're doing a CAN-STEP water line project, so, you know, all the labor's more or less, you know, gonna be donated for the price of, you know, getting the help for the line and other help too being paid for, so we kind of getting to know how to get that done a little bit through the city councils.
Yeah, and definitely anything that we do for my project would have to be volunteer work.
So pretty much the town stepping up, if they really, really want these changes done, they'd have to donate and volunteer their time to help with it.
Yeah,
So,
and you know, it doesn't have to be something huge, you know, we don't have to build a building. It can be something as small as planting some bushes or some trees. You know, something like we've done in Eureka with the bench project. We could do that here. We could even take the same bench design. I could present that to you guys, and if you like it, I can have the benches cut out in school. I can bring them here, and we can put the benches together and, you know, spread them around town. So it's, the scale of it is whatever you want it to be.
So what would be, what do you see as your next step being from here then? What do you hope to get from today?
Well, after I get feedback from you guys, that's going to determine, you know, that urban planning aspect I was talking about. You know, I'm gonna do a diagrammatic map like the guy who worked in Cuba did. So depending on if everyone says mostly the same thing, that's what I'm gonna focus on. So that's gonna tell me, okay, here's where this should go, and here's where that should go, and this area we need to focus on, this area over here is not as important, or maybe that gets looked at later. So I'm going to synthesize the information I get today to determine the next step as far as design goes. And I'll be back in December to present my findings and also get more feedback. You know, if I say, everybody said they thought this would be good, and then on that day if everyone's like, well, kind of thinking about it, maybe we should go more this direction. But what that will do is really give me the ideas that I should be focusing on next semester and where the actual design efforts will come in.
So you're gonna be back next month for, like, what, city council meeting or a special?
It'll probably be something like this. So yeah, if there's any dates everyone thinks would work better or some dates that won't, it could probably be either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Otherwise I have class, so.
So do you have any ideas that you've been thinking about presenting them?
I do have, not anything that's designed, because this phase of the project is what we call programming, so figuring out, you know, what you're actually going to design. But I think what would be really great is some sort of grocery store or farmer's market, or maybe some sort of, like I'm doing in Eureka, a walking trail that goes through the town, is easily accessed from the residential areas. You know, you wouldn't have to go all the way to the outskirts of town to get to it. So those are my ideas so far. I didn't want to, you know, kind of feel like I was pushing ideas on you already, and it's like, oh, she says this, so that's what we have to do. So that's why I'm really looking for ideas from you guys. So yeah, feel free to ask more questions if you want, but, I have questions for you. So, first of all, I guess, what is it that you like about Jamestown? Why do you live here? Or if you don't live here, why do you, come to visit?
And all of those are on your survey, right?
Yep. But just to spring some ideas, maybe someone will say something and someone will be like, I hadn't thought about that, but I agree.
Well, we came here because it was a small community and, well, the house was really cheap. Roy's was a contractor. But the whole idea was to fix it up and move on. And it was just a wonderful little community. The people are wonderful, the town's wonderful, and it's quiet. And yet it's close enough to Kansas City or Wichita or Topeka or Lincoln that take a weekend and go to your big city if you want to. And
We sure use a restaurant again.
yes, I'd love to see a restaurant.
Restaurant would be really nice,
That's
wouldn't
my
it?
top.
Yeah.
Brand new restaurant would be super nice.
The grocery store. I don't know if you can ever make a grocery store work.
I don't think so either.
I just don't think you,
I think your profit level with trying to move stuff that's dated, you
Yeah,
lose
yeah,
so
yeah.
much that way that.
that's like, I used to try to buy bread and stuff down there, but half the time I get it home with that mold on it and stuff.
It'd be tough.
It's just tough.
And maybe that's something where a farmer's market type thing might be more workable. I mean, it would be seasonal,
Exactly.
but it might be more workable type
Right.
thing.
But there are things you can bring to the farmer market in the off-season, stuff that you can utilize in the off-season,
Yeah, and it
That's
wouldn't
my
have
question,
to.
would it be seasonal? That'd be a seasonal thing?
Well, but
Farmer's market, yeah,
people
usually,
can
through the summer, isn't it? I mean,
But you could have like your own produce, like if I made jelly out of my
Right,
grapevines, or
exactly.
someone crocheted,
Or ceramics.
someone's ceramics, or woodworking, or,
Or someone's wine.
yeah.
Like a covered, like
Homemade
a
noodles.
shelter house, off of Main Street. There's areas down there that has no more building there. You could turn that in easily a covered farmer's market to where people all year round could
Yep.
come in and, sell anything.
well, Portland
It's
has
homemade.
atticus, and they have, like half their building, isn't it? Where they have other stuff going on all the time, and the other half is antique stuff. And something, if you can incorporate something like that, you could have it year round and indoors or outdoors or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
And it's us as a city, we got space, I mean, and we got two buildings, that we own. And surely we could find room to put something like that in.
Well, have you been around the Leavenworth area where they have kept the old downtown area where it still has the brick
Sidewalks and the lamp
sidewalks and the
posts
old lamp posts and that kind of thing? I think that that's kind of intriguing to see, when you have a small community and where, certain parts of that can live, like history and that kind of thing. I like that kind of feel.
And how many small towns do you know that have this size of a park?
Yeah, that's another thing.
We got this part that's kind of, there's good aspects about it, but it's kind of bland. There's so much you could do with it. We're starting to, some of us are starting to try to get that ball field, having something again on it. And I think if we keep up and going with that, and then eventually, do something great with the park, maybe, start planting trees, turning into part of the main nature trail, I guess, would be an idea. That would be a good idea, something to think about. That would attract people, it's like, Minneapolis or Miltonville's got that train park, yeah, just to play.
Have you, has anybody seen some of the more environmentally friendly type of playscapes and landscaping things that have
you know, rocks and stumps and trees and different things that you can climb over and play on and do some things, but it's more kind of a landscaping thing that is a playscape, you know, rather than having some of the hard, you know, plastic and wood, you know, type of play.
I think Greensburg did that.
Greensburg?
Greensburg.
Oh, in
When the
Greensburg.
tornado happened, yeah, they went like totally, almost 100%, you know, green.
Yeah.
So,
It's like
So kind of
bringing
like
in
rocks
boulders, yeah, like bringing in rocks and trees, you know, like, it's really kind of cool. I've seen some of the designs for some different things. And it's a lot lower cost because of the type of materials you're using. You use materials that you have around, you know, trees that you cut, you know, rock that you've gotten from different places.
Jamie, do you have more copies?
Yes, I can start passing them out.
Sorry, I should have grabbed mine.
What would attract me to So Jamestown don't have a grocery store. That means they don't have a Sonic either.
Randall had a really good idea, but he's Am I writing with that?
Oh, yeah, have you heard of Gypsum?
Yeah, some of you might have to
Now,
take this.
there's a small town called Gypsum. And at first, they went in there and they opened up a
Yeah, especially
barbecue
when there's nowhere around.
restaurant and
Anomalous used to have one.
And people drive all over to go there, get the barbecue. Right down the road, about 10 miles, Roxbury, there's a bank.
that's it.
They wouldn't let it build because it had grain there at one time. And a storage fee, you know, so people go and get seed, feed and whatnot. And the community would let it, you know, grow and do anything else. And so now it's nothing but a waste of your life.
I'll be sure to hand that back to you. I kind of like that.
Nobody keeps up the yards, you know, junk cars parked there. It's terrible. And it ends up nowhere else.
Right.
Gypsum, you know, did something with there. And it's like, just one place.
Yeah.
They picked it. Gypsum and Roxbury.
I don't know how to be.
I mean, even Canton, it's small, but it's got the rodeo. Peter.
This is graded, Bub.
Watch out.
Is he going to sleep?
No, she said it was being graded.
Oh, I say, I didn't know we were gonna take a test.
I failed already then. Oh. I'll let you sit down at the table.